Building external perspective into your diagnosis. You've spent the last month or 6 weeks listening inside your organisation. You've done the surveys and you've had the one-on-one conversations. You've run group sessions. You have a pretty good sense of what your team thinks happened, where the problems are, and what needs to change. But here's what you also have, an incomplete picture, because your team, no matter how smart they are, has a limited view of reality. They know what it's like to work at your company. They don't necessarily know what it's like to be your customer. They know your product. They don't necessarily know your competitor's products the way a buyer does, or through actual usage. They know that what they think the market wants. They don't necessarily know what the market is actually doing. This isn't criticism, it's just perspective. Your sales team has theories about why deals are being lost, but they're usually getting filtered information from prospects. Your product team has theories about why features aren't being used, but they're working from analytics and support tickets, not actual observation. Your marketing team has theories about positioning, but they're not the buyers seeing your message alongside every competitor's. So the internal listening you've done is essential. It tells you what's happening inside the system. But you need an external perspective to complete your diagnosis. You need to understand what customers actually experience, not what you think they experience. Why prospects choose competitors, not your team's theory about why. And what the market is actually doing, not what you assume. Where the gaps are between your perception and external reality. This briefing explains how to systematically incorporate an external perspective into your diagnostic phase. We'll cover 4 major approaches. Customer discovery that goes beyond what your team already thinks they know, competitor research that reveals gaps in your understanding, desk research that grounds you in market reality, and using AI-powered deep research to accelerate that learning. Because here's what we know. The CEOs who are most effective are the ones who combine internal and external perspectives. They listen deeply within the organisation and then go outside to test what they've heard. They don't just rely on what their team tells them about customers, they talk to customers directly. They don't just accept their team's view of competitors, they become users of competitor products. They don't just trust assumptions about the market, they do the research. Let's talk about how to do this in a way that's rigorous yet time efficient, since you're still under pressure to move from diagnosis to action. Let's start with customer discovery, because this is where the biggest gaps between internal perception and external reality often lie. Your team already talks to customers. Your salespeople are in conversations every day. Your customer success team has ongoing relationships. Your product team likely conducts user research. So why do you need to do your own customer discovery? Because the conversations your team is having are filtered through the role and their objectives. Sales trying to close deals, so they ask questions that help them sell. Customer success focuses on retention, so they're focused on satisfaction and usage. The product team is trying to validate roadmap decisions, so they're asking about specific features. But as CEO, you bring something different. You need to understand why customers bought in the first place, the actual problem they were trying to solve, not the one you think they solved. You need to understand why some prospects chose competitors, the actual evaluation criteria, not what shows up in win-loss reports. You need to understand what customers really value, not what you think they do. And you need to understand where you actually fall short in ways that your team might not be able to see or report. There's a book called The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick that's essential reading here. The core insight is people will lie to you not out of malice, but because they're trying to be nice. Because they don't actually know what they want, or because they're telling you what they think you want to hear. If you ask, would you use this feature? They'll say yes to be polite. If you ask, what do you want? They'll give you a feature list that has nothing to do with their real problems. If you tell them your idea and ask if it's good, they'll tell you it's great, but then never buy. So the mom test approach is about asking questions that can't be lied to. You're asking about specific past behaviours, not hypothetical futures. You're asking about problems they've experienced, not solutions they want. You're observing what they actually do, not what they say they'll do. Practically, this means questions like, tell me about the last time you ran into this problem, what did you do? Walk me through how you're solving this today. Which tools are you using, and what's frustrating about that? When did you start looking for a solution? What triggered that? What did you evaluate and how did you make the decision? Not, would you pay for a product that does X? Which features do you like? Do you like our interface? You often want to talk to 3 types of customers. First, your best customers, the ones who get tremendous value, who renew multiple times and refer others. You need to understand what made them successful. What problem were they really solving? What were they doing before? Why did they choose you? And what would they lose if you went away? This tells you what to protect and to build on. It also tells you your actual value proposition, not what's in your marketing materials, but what's in the mind of people who love your product. Second, customers who churned in the last 6 months. Not the ones who left because they went out of business or got acquired. The ones who left because they chose to leave. You need to understand what went wrong. What were they expecting that they didn't get? What did they switch to? And what would have kept them? Your team has probably got theories about churn. The theories are probably partially wrong. Churned customers will tell you the truth, especially if you make it clear you are not trying to win them back, you are just trying to learn. Third, prospects who choose a competitor in the last 6 months. These are the hardest conversations to get, but they are incredibly valuable. Why did they pick the competitor? What was their evaluation process? What did they see as the key differences? And what almost made them choose you? This reveals gaps in positioning, product, pricing, or sales approach that your team might not be seeing clearly. When you have these conversations, keep them conversational, not interrogations. 30 to 45 minutes. Start broad. Tell me about your business and what you're trying to accomplish. And then narrow. Walk me through how this problem shows up for you. Let them tell stories. When they mention something interesting, go deeper. That's interesting. Tell me more about that situation. When they mention behaviour, get specific. How often does that happen and what do you do when it does? Watch for emotion. When they get animated or frustrated or excited, that's signal. That's what really matters to them. Probe there. It sounds like that was really frustrating. What made it so difficult? Don't pitch, don't defend, don't explain what you meant to do or plan to do. Just listen and understand their reality. If they misunderstand something about your product, that's data about communication, not an opportunity to correct them in the conversation. Take notes, but better yet, record the conversation if you can. You want to be fully present, not distracted by note-taking. And then you'll catch things on replay that you missed in the moment. There's another powerful framework here from Clayton Christensen and Bob Mosetta called Jobs to be Done. The core insight, people don't buy products, they hire products to do a job. They're trying to make progress in their life. Understanding that job, not the surface level feature need, but the deeper progress that they're trying to make, tells you what you're really competing with. The classic example, people don't buy drills because they want drills. They buy drills because they want holes. But they don't really want holes either. They want to hang pictures. But they don't really want to hang pictures. They want to make their home feel personal and welcome. And that's the job. Make my home feel like mine. Once you understand that job, you realise that you're not competing with other drills. You're competing with wallpaper, shelving systems, professional decorators, and the decision to just leave walls blank. For your product, what job are customers hiring really to do? Not project manage or collaboration or whatever category you're in. What progress are they trying to make? What are they trying to become? And what are they trying to avoid? When you understand the job, you understand what you're really competing with, and you understand what value actually means to them. You might be thinking, I don't have time to do 30 customer interviews, and you're right. You don't need 30. You might need 10 to 15 conversations across your 3 customer types. You're looking for patterns, not comprehensive data. 5 conversations with the best customers, 5 with churned customers, 5 with lost prospects. That's 15 hours of conversation, maybe another 10 hours of prep and synthesis. 25 hours over 2 to 3 weeks. It is significant investment, but it's foundational. You can delegate some of this. If you're a tech company, perhaps you have your chief product officer or chief customer officer do some of the conversations with a clear brief on what you're trying to learn. But you should do at least a few yourself. You need to hear customer reality directly, not filtered through someone else's interpretation. Beyond interviews, if you have a product that people use, you should watch people use it. Not your team using it, not power users who've figured everything out. New users, average users, struggling users. This can be formal. User testing labs where you set up scenarios and watch people try to accomplish tasks. Or informal, sitting with a customer for an hour while they do their actual work with your product. You're looking for confusion, workarounds, frustration, or unexpected behaviour. When someone clicks something 3 times trying to find a feature, that's data. When they're using another tool alongside yours to accomplish something you think that your product does, that's data. When they light up using one feature and grudgingly use another, that's data. Your product team probably does some of this, but you should see it for yourself. The gap between what you think the product does and what users actually experience is usually bigger than you think. Now let's talk about understanding your competitive reality. Your team has views on competitors. They're probably partially wrong or even outdated. The challenge with competitor research is that it's easy to do badly. You can spend time on competitor websites, read their marketing materials, sit through their demos, and come away with very little useful insight. Because what they say about themselves is marketing. What matters is customers' experience. The single most valuable thing you can do is become a user of competitor products. Not read about them, not watch demos. Actually sign up, go through onboarding, use the product, and experience the customer journey. For software products, this is straightforward. Most competitors have free trials or freemium tiers. Sign up with a personal email, go through the onboarding, and try to accomplish real tasks. Experience their product as a prospect or user would. Now pay attention to what happens after you sign up. How do they onboard you? What's the first run experience like? Is it intuitive or confusing? What can you accomplish easily and what's difficult? What makes you say, that's nice, or I wish we had that? What makes you think that's not very good, or we do this better? Where do you get stuck or frustrated? What emails do they send? How do they try and engage you? And what's the pricing experience like if you explore upgrading? Do this for your top 3 competitors. It will take a few hours per competitor, but it's time well spent. If your product is not software, if it's a physical product or a service, you still need to experience the competition, buy their product, use their service, experience what customers experience. Beyond using the product, go through the buying process. Act as a prospect, fill out their contact form, take a sales call, get a demo, see a proposal. What's the sales process like? How do they position themselves? What differentiators do they emphasize? What objections do they anticipate? What proof points do they use? And how do they price? This tells you how customers are experiencing the competitive evaluation. Your sales team has a view, but they're seeing it from the losing side when prospects tell them why they've chose someone else. You need to see it from the buying side. Another rich source, user reviews, not the ratings. Those are often manipulated or biased. The detailed reviews, especially the critical ones. What do users love about competitors? What do they complain about? What use cases are they solving? What integrations matter? What price points cause hesitation? You're looking for patterns across many reviews. One person complaining about customer support does not tell you much. 20 people mentioning it tells you something real. Also, look at community spaces, Reddit, industry Slack channels, LinkedIn groups. Where are people discussing tools in your category? What are they saying? What questions are they asking? What frustrations are they sharing? This is an unfiltered market reality. No one is performing for you. They're just talking to each other about their actual experience. After you've done this research, you are synthesizing where are we legitimately better and where do customers validate that? Where are we legitimately worse and where are we being out-executed? Where is it positioning perception versus product reality? Where are we competing on dimensions that don't actually matter to customers? What's the emerging competitive landscape and who is gaining momentum? This informs everything: positioning, pricing, sales approach. But you can't do it sitting in your office reading competitor websites. You have to experience competitive reality the way customers do. Beyond customers and competitors, you need to understand the broader market context. What's happening in your industry? What trends are affecting buyer behaviour? What does good data say about your market? There's a whole industry of people studying your market, analysts, consultants, research firms. They publish reports. Some are free, many are expensive, but they often contain data and perspectives that you don't have. For B2B SaaS, firms like Gartner, Forrester, and IDC publish category research. They do surveys of thousands of buyers. They track vendor momentum and market share. They identify trends and predict shifts. Even if you're not big enough to be covered, these reports tell you what buyers are seeing, what evaluation criteria matter, and what leading vendors are doing. For other markets, look for trade associations, industry publications, and consulting firm research. McKinsey, Deloitte, Boston Consulting Group often publish industry-specific reports that are publicly available. Also, look for benchmark data that's relevant to your stage and model. What are typical conversion rates, churn rates, sales cycle length, and deal sizes for companies like yours? How do you compare? OpenView Partners, Battery Ventures, and others publish annual benchmark reports. Your assumptions about what's normal might be wrong. The data recalibrates your expectations. Track funding activity in your space. Who's raising? How much? What are they saying they'll use it for? This tells you where smart investors see opportunity. Using Crunchbase, PitchBook, or CB Insights to track funding activity. Also track M&A. Who's being acquired? For how much? Why? This tells you market momentum and validation. It also tells you where competition is going to intensify. Newly funded competitors will be hiring and spending aggressively. Don't ignore macro factors. Are the regulatory changes affecting your market? Economic conditions affecting buyer behaviour? Technology shifts changing what's possible? Your team may have some awareness of this, but they might not have done the deep work to understand the implications. A new regulation may create an opportunity or a threat. A recession may change buyer priorities. An AI breakthrough might make some capabilities commoditized. Spend time understanding the forces shaping your market that are beyond your control. You can't change them, but you need to adapt to them. Synthesizing market intelligence. The goal isn't to read everything, it's to develop an informed point of view on, is the market growing or consolidating? What tailwinds or headwinds are we facing? How do we compare to benchmarks? Where is investment flowing? What strategic moves are competitors making? What forces will shape the next 12 to 24 months? This context shapes your strategy. If the market is consolidating, you might need to accelerate. If entrants are flooding in, you might need to differentiate more sharply. If buyer behaviour is shifting, you might need to adjust your go-to-market motion. You won't have escaped knowing that there is newer capability that can dramatically accelerate your research. AI-powered deep research tools. We're talking about systems that can synthesize information across many sources and present analysis that would take you or an analyst days or weeks to compile. Modern AI tools, particularly ones focused on research like Perplexity Pro, Claude with web search capabilities, or specialized research agents, can help you with comprehensive literature review. What have experts written about why B2B SaaS companies store between 20 and 50 million annual recurring revenue? The AI can scan dozens or hundreds of articles, books, and discussions, and then synthesize key themes and specific frameworks. Competitive landscape mapping. Who are the emerging competitors in the customer success software space, and what are they emphasizing in their positioning? AI can scan websites, funding announcements, job postings, and media coverage to map the competitive landscape. With market trend analysis, what are the biggest trends in marketing technology adoption over the last 18 months? Again, AI can aggregate data from multiple surveys, reports, and news sources to identify patterns. Best practice identification. What are the best practices for pricing multi-product B2B SaaS offerings? AI can pull from case studies, expert articles, and academic research to synthesize approaches. The key advantage? Speed and comprehensiveness. What might take you or an analyst weeks to research, AI can do in an hour. Not perfectly, and you still need to verify and apply judgment, but the efficiency gain is enormous. Be specific in your queries. Not tell me about competitors, but identify B2B project management tools that have raised Series B funding in the last 18 months and summarise their positioning based on their websites and press releases. Ask for sources. Good AI research tools will cite the sources of their information. You can verify, dive deeper on anything that seems important. Use it iteratively. Start broad and then narrow. What are the main approaches to pricing in SaaS? Followed by, tell me more about value-based pricing implementation challenges. Followed by, what specific tactics do companies use to discover willingness to pay? Cross-reference with your own research. AI research is a starting point and not the final word. Use it to identify what to investigate further, what questions to ask customers, and what to test with competitors. Do not outsource your judgment. AI can synthesize information but cannot make strategic decisions for your specific context. You still need to integrate what you learn with what you know about your organization, customers, and capabilities. Here's how you might use AI research in your diagnostic phase. After your internal listening, you have hypotheses about why growth has stalled. Use AI to research what are common causes of growth stalls for B2B software companies in the 10 to 30 million range, and see what patterns the experts identify. Do they match your hypothesis? After customer conversations, you're hearing certain jobs customers are trying to do. Use AI to research what alternatives do companies typically evaluate for X job. What criteria do they use? This expands your understanding of your competitive set. After competitive research, you want to understand their strategy. Use AI to research what has competitor X said in recent interviews and press releases about their strategy and focus areas. This will give you a more complete picture. The point is leveraging AI to accelerate and expand your research, not to replace your own thinking and judgment. Let me close by connecting this back to your internal listening work. The internal listening you did, the conversations with your teams, the surveys, the group sessions gave you the organisation's perception of reality. What your team believes happened, what they think the problems are, and what they see as opportunity. That is essential. You can't lead without understanding how your organisation sees the world, but it's not enough. External perspective work, customer discovery, competitor research, market analysis, and AI-assisted deep research will give you the actual reality. What customers actually experience, what competitors actually do, and what the market actually values, where your organisation's perception is accurate and where it's off. The gap between internal perception and external reality is where your highest leverage insights will live. And that's where you'll discover your team thinks that customers love feature X, but customers actually bought for reason Y. Your team thinks that you lose to competitor A on price, but you actually lose on ease of implementation. Your team thinks that the market wants Z, but the market has moved to wanting Q. Your team thinks that your differentiation is clear, but your customers see you as interchangeable. Here's why this matters for growth. You can't fix problems you don't accurately understand. If your team thinks that you have a product problem, but you actually have a positioning problem, you will invest in the wrong things. If your team thinks that you have a sales problem, but you actually have an ICP problem, you will make changes that don't address the root cause. So this external perspective work is not optional. It's how you will validate or challenge what is learned internally. It's about developing an accurate diagnosis, not just a team consensus diagnosis. The timing matters. Do your internal listening first. You need to understand what your team sees and thinks. Then do your external research. Then synthesize the two. What aligns, what conflicts, and where are the gaps? That synthesis, internal perspective plus external reality, is what gives you the foundation to make decisions that will actually restart growth. 3 months of diagnostic work, internal listening to understand the organisation, external research to understand reality, synthesis to develop an accurate diagnosis, then confident action.